Hi guys, today we will be addressing the IOC or International Olympic Committee allowing professional competitive athletes to compete in the Olympics and how this change in policy affects the athletes' careers. This means that players in the NBA, NHL, and other professional leagues could represent their country when in the past they could not. For many of these professional athletes, representing their country at the Olympic Games is their dream, such as the Canadian hockey players. Winning a gold medal at the Games is a huge honor and you become an Olympic and Canadian hero. In this episode, we will talk about the good, such as increased viewership, enhanced sponsorships, and also the bad, such as inequality and negative brand image. With that being said, let's roll.
My name's Henry, and today we're talking about some pros that have to come along with obviously professionals playing in the Olympics. Now, one of the pros, that comes along with allowing professional athletes to participate in the Olympic Games is, just having this idea of an increased brand value. Like by relating the games or having famous players participate in the games, it can draw outside sponsorships or even like viewers. Like obviously, an example of this is during Vancouver 2010. The gold medal final, the golden goal, like just like that was the moment, and the entire Canadian team was made up of then professional NHL players, and even like the American side. Like the Americans were both made up an entire NHL side, and obviously like that moment wouldn't have been as special, and that game wouldn't have been as good, and like the viewership wouldn't have been as high if it hadn't been for those players. And so them being there, attracted the biggest viewership in the Olympics like history. It attracted over 27 million viewers in the US and 16 million in Canada. That's over 40 million just in North America watching one game at a time. And obviously that's just one screen at a time. So, you and your buddies are watching at a bar, like that still only counts for one viewer, but there's five of you watching there or whatever. Now, of course, like we're looking at like good sponsorships, and obviously like you need good teams, but even on top of that, you also need good players, and of course, good players bring with them good sponsorships. Just like building off of the golden goal idea, you know, looking at Sidney Crosby, as soon as he scored that goal, about 2.5 weeks later, he got a $1.4 million per year for 5 to 7 years with Reebok. And that was at the time like the biggest signing in NHL history and hockey history, and the only reason that was possible, and it was also brought by the Olympics. So even just like for the actual players and just like it makes them want to come in and actually play in the Olympics. It means that like quite frankly they have so many options going forward. And of course, just like looking at it recently, like obviously Subway and Andre DeGrasse. I mean, every single time the Olympics are within 3 months of each other, you turn on your TV or watching your favorite show, whatever, it's boom, Andre DeGrasse talking about Subway, eat fresh, blah blah blah. Or even as of late, it's been I know like Toronto Raptors and some Toronto Maple Leafs have been inside these Subway commercials, and obviously like these players then go on, and especially Andre DeGrasse is literally an Olympic athlete, and he offers so many options to the Canadian Olympic team via sponsorship. Of course, like sponsorships is not just like the main thing we're looking at here either. On top of like just like bringing in sponsorships, you're looking at viewers. You have some type of high performance athlete in the finals, again like the golden goal. You're gonna have a lot of people coming in and watching the finals or watching a race, or it doesn't even matter. Like again, hockey is just a great example because the NHL, as of recently, decided to not let their players participate anymore in the Olympics, which basically meant that these games and special moments couldn't happen as often. But Andre DeGrasse still runs outside of it, and Canada, on top of many other nations, like has a lot of professional athletes that do other things than just running the Olympics, and that can bring in so many more viewerships, even just to their sport, even coming in from outside of the Olympics. Obviously, looking at just like increasing the brand value and how it can help the Olympic Games with professional athletes. I won't go into this for too long. It's I pretty much just touched upon like how they majorly increase it with sponsorships and viewership as such, but just going a bit like more in depth with it, I guess. Like looking at increased brand value, obviously sponsorships massive point in it. Like the IOC gets tons of money, like 80% of the revenue just comes from this brand value idea, and then obviously like from there like you can just build on and on and on. Obviously like if they didn't have professional athletes, like if they didn't have as big of athletes within the world stage, they wouldn't be able to spend as much money as they do. They wouldn't be able to make as much money as they do. This market wouldn't be as big as it is. Like currently, there's probably only like give or take like 5 to 10 cities that can even hold Olympic Games. Like it just comes down to it's so expensive nowadays. Like I'm pretty sure the last Olympic Games was over $7 billion. No, obviously, don't take my word for that, but it was along those lines of just being absolutely astronomically sized that to the point where like you need these professional athletes to come in and just bring money. Period. Viewership. No one's paying to watch. Or yes, sorry, but no one's gonna pay like as much money to watch the championship football as they are to play like in the Premier League or something like that. Like just use a metaphor there. Like again, it's no one's gonna pay to everyone's gonna want to watch like Usain Bolt beat another world record, but watch some like guys that just averagely run. Like yeah, there's the idea of nationalism and cheering on your fellow nation and blah blah blah, but what it comes down to is they're there for the entertainment. They're there to watch some players just fuck it up. Like, excuse my language, but seriously, they're there to watch some people play good. And you can't do that if you don't have professional athletes. And again, we saw that, obviously, as I was mentioned before, like, gold medal game. That was, again, can't be replicated. And, you can't get that with minor league players anymore. And you can't get that with, players that even just play over in Sweden. You need this in order to even get money to hold the Olympic Games. So, can't even have the Olympic Games if you don't have professional athletes. Pass it on over to my buddy Jordan. Woo!
Hello everyone, my name is Jordan Savage and today I'm going to talk about the effect on pro athletes in the Olympics and how they can help broaden the game's target audience and help increase media coverage. Professional athletes play a huge role in bringing the spectators for the games. Fans from across the world will tune into the Olympics just to see their favorite players. I'll give an example of this, and the best one I can think of is for Canadian fans have to be Sidney Crosby in the 2010 Olympic Games. I watched pretty much every game just to see Sidney Crosby play. Not to mention I was a huge Blackhawks fan back in the day. So Jonathan Toews too was also cool to watch play for Canada. It was a great experience, and at the time I was living in Vancouver, so being able to go into the Olympic Village and be there in person for events was probably one of the most memorable experiences of my life. The second thing I wanted to talk about was how much the media benefits from these pro athletes that play in the Olympics. Big sports broadcasting companies like TSN or Sportsnet make so much money from the Olympics because these programs typically, like, they're the ones that you use to watch hockey or baseball or soccer, etc., whatever. But I'll use an example from my Vancouver Olympics experience and say that I remember my cable TV only had TSN for sports, and during the Olympics it was the only thing that was on, so that's what I would watch in the month of February or whenever the games took place. I personally support having commercial players in the games, but I can see why there may be some disadvantages to having pro athletes play. That's enough from me, so here's Anthony to talk about negative aspects to commercial athletes in the Olympics.
Thank you, Jordan. As you've heard, I'm Anthony, and today I'm very excited to tell you guys about a couple negatives of having career athletes partaking in the Olympics. The first thing I want to talk about is the conflict of interest between the IOC and pro leagues. By having any athlete play in any game, there's the potential for them to get injured. By extension, any injury a player receives when competing in the Olympics could leave the IOC responsible for the injury, leading for the possibility for pro leagues to be uneasy about having their players compete outside of their leagues at the Olympics. Then, Potential problems can become more serious when superstar athletes get into the mix. For example, imagine that LeBron James is competing at the Olympics and he hurts his ankle. This could change the outcome of the Los Angeles Lakers' outcome for the season, and possibly the outcome of the NBA season. Then let's take into account the NHL. They decided to stop allowing players to compete in the Olympics in 2018, coming out saying it was due to the Olympics taking place during the middle of our season, and any and all injuries that a player could potentially receive could change the outcome of the NHL season on an Olympic year. My second con that I wanted to talk about is the possibility for inequality that could arise from having career athletes competing at the Olympic Games. By having commercial and or professional players in Olympic competition, it increasingly makes it more likely to create a gap between wealthy competing countries and countries that are less fortunate. This could start to create a larger skill gap between countries like the United States, Russia, China, that are able to create top-level professional players, compared to countries that cannot afford to produce top-level professional players. There are many factors that can come into play when an individual wants to reach the level of being able to play in the Olympics, such as the needed funds, adequate training facilities, and high-level coaching. These can be much harder for an amateur athlete to obtain compared to a professional level player. On top of this, amateurs have the possibility of having to work a job to sustain themselves on top of training for their sport, which can cause a lot more stress and strain on them, making it more possible for wealthy countries to increase the skill gap which their players may have over ones that cannot afford to produce top-level professional players. Then I would like to welcome Conor. He will be taking it from here.
Negative brand image. The inclusion of professional athletes in the Olympics has been a contentious issue as it goes against the original spirit of the Games, which was founded on the principle of amateurism. While some argue that allowing professionals to compete enhances the quality of the competition, others believe that it takes away from the purity and integrity of the Games. One negative consequence of allowing professional athletes to participate is the increasing commercialization of the Games. With more focus on marketing and sponsorship deals, the Olympics have become more about generating revenue rather than the love of the sport. This could further increase the commercialization of the Games, taking away from the purity of the competition. Additionally, the inclusion of professional athletes can create financial disparities among countries and teams. Professional athletes have access to better resources, facilities, and equipment, which can give certain countries an unfair advantage over others. This can lead to an uneven playing field and could negatively impact the perception of the Olympics as a fair and just competition. The pressure to win in professional sports is significantly higher than in amateur sports. This pressure to perform and win can lead to more doping scandals and other unethical behavior, which can have a negative impact on the brand image of the Olympics. Furthermore, when professional athletes are allowed to participate, the focus of the Games can shift from the actual competition to the athlete's personal brand, their endorsements, and their potential to generate revenue. Lastly, the decision to allow professional athletes to participate in certain sports can also negatively impact the brand image of those specific events. When certain countries dominate a specific sport due to their ability to hire top talent, it can create a sense of disillusionment for other countries who feel like they have little to no chance of winning. This can lead to a decrease in interest in those events and can impact the overall brand image of the Olympics. In conclusion, while allowing professional athletes to compete in the Olympics may have some benefits, there are also some potential negative consequences that must be carefully considered. The loss of amateur spirit, financial disparities, commercialization, pressure to win, and an unfair advantage for certain countries can all impact the brand image of the Olympics in a negative way. It is important for the International Olympic Committee to balance the participation of both amateurs and professionals to maintain the integrity and purity of the Games.
there you have it. We discussed brand value, brand image, the positives of media coverage, as well as the negatives of inequality within countries competing at the games. We covered a lot of information. There's a lot of positives, such as Henry mentioned, with new opportunities for the athletes with sponsorship deals, but also negatives, as Conor mentioned, with fairness among different countries. Some countries would never have a chance of winning. With that being said, thank you for listening today. Bye.